Explorers, it's your adventure podcast hostess with the mostest, Katie Staples. Join me for travel stories, tips, and tricks to help you explore and create unforgettable memories. Follow me on Instagram at the.great.escape.podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can be the first to hear new tips. Today, I am bringing you my friend Brad Felker. We started talking at the end of 2024 about some really cool plans that we had for 2025. And so every week we would give each other what we called Katie inspiration and Brad inspiration. And we would give each other motivational quotes because I was planning my Mount Whitney hike and he was planning something fun of his own. Today we're talking with my friend Brad about his trip to India. So first, Brad, tell the people a little bit more about you.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate you asking me to come on and talk about my trip, because travel is a passion of mine. It's a passion of mine and my wife's. My trip to India specifically was by myself. I'm a lifelong resident of Georgia. We live in Kathleen, which is just outside of Warner Robins in Middle Georgia. We have 2 dogs, and it's a pretty simple life here, which kind of leads into the trip to India and what all that meant to me.
Let's start with what inspired this trip to India. Tell us about it, when it was. Give us like the overview.
The short version is you inspired me to go to India. The longer version is, you remember that movie Little Buddha? Keanu Reeves was in it. He played Buddha. And I watched that movie and it was so intriguing. Just everything about it, sitting under the Bodhi tree, and everything about Buddhism was just so intriguing to me, having grown up in the Bible Belt, that I was very interested in it. Fast forward many, many years to when we met, and you mentioned something on social media about a Misogi challenge and what you were doing. And I had planned on doing something in January anyway. I mean, I was going to go watch some Broadway shows or something like that, which would have been great. But when you mentioned your challenge, I was like, well, I kind of felt like I needed to do something bigger. I had just had a large professional change. I had some personal changes. I was like, I need something meaningful. It's like, who could I possibly want to meet? Where's a place I would like to go? And one of my personal heroes is the Dalai Lama. So I thought, can you meet the Dalai Lama? Is that something that people do? And I looked it up. I did a little bit of research, and lo and behold, this is something you can do. You can request an audience with the Dalai Lama. So I emailed the Dalai Lama, thinking in 100 lifetimes, I'm never going to hear back. 2 days. 2 days. The desk of the Dalai Lama wrote me back and said, yes, just tell us your schedule and we'll let you know his availability and see if we can schedule a time for him to host you. I'm like, this can't be real. This is fake. So I immediately booked the trip. I don't care at this point if I even meet him. I was like, I'm going to where he lives. I'm going to be in the area. And it's one of those things, if you book a villa next to where George Clooney is, you just hope that you see him at some point. That was kind of my mentality. I wrote them back after I had everything booked, and they said, well, we don't know his schedule that far. And long story short, I didn't get to meet him. Our schedules didn't match up. He was actually going to be in southern India, and if I had done a bit more research, I would have loved to have gone to southern India. But that was kind of the impetus of it all. It was like, you started with that Misogi challenge, and I thought of something that would be meaningful to me. Going to India, meeting the Dalai Lama, even though I didn't get to meet him, extraordinarily memorable experience. I went ahead and booked the trip for January. I was like, I'm gonna take a big chunk, a larger trip than I've ever done, especially by myself. Nearly 3 weeks over in India. And once I got over there, I realized, talking to people, that's really a small amount of time. I think in America, we get this idea that we get 2 weeks out of the year to go, and the rest of the world's like, 2 weeks is a good start. I was like, you should be booking months to go visit these places. Honestly, there were a lot of things that I didn't book or plan until I got to Delhi, because I just didn't want everything to be so structured. I wanted to be able to enjoy and kind of have a little bit of spontaneity while I was there, and it was kind of the whole point, was to take in as much as I could without being structured. I have to be here. I have to be here.
So, Brad, what kind of planning goes into a major trip like this?
I really wish I had done more because a lot of this kind of felt like an impulse. And like I said, you kind of inspired this entire trip. And once I found out that possibly meeting the Dalai Lama was a possibility, I booked it. I booked it, and I had little small things planned here and there. But had I known, and these were things that I figured out after I arrived, there was a very large celebration, millions and millions of people in southern India that I would have loved to have gone to. And just things I didn't even think about because my whole focus was I'm going to go try to meet the Dalai Lama. And it was kind of one of those situational things where I was like, well, I'll just put myself in his town. And if he happens to show up, that, we bump into each other, we have tea, and, it's wonderful. But the planning of it was more, let's book the flight, let's get the hotel for Delhi. And I didn't have anything booked for Dharamshala and McLeodganj when I had the trips set. It was getting to McLeodganj. All of that was kind of, I'll get there and figure it out. I felt like I had enough time that if I needed to pivot in some way, I was like, well, I needed to get another night in Delhi because I couldn't get to Dharamshala. But I wish I had planned more just simply because there's a festival, and several people told me that for whatever reason, the timing of it was a 150-year event, that it wasn't going to happen for another 150 years. So I hated that. So I would have done more research before taking a trip that size. But I have to say, I don't think it could have gone much better for the way that I did plan it for what I did put in place, because I had a fantastic time.
Okay, good. And so with the amount that you did plan, it sounds like the more expensive items like the airfare and a lot of the hotels that you paid up front. So what kind of costs did you front before you even landed?
I will say the accommodations in McLeod, even though I had no idea how I was going to get there, I went ahead and paid for that a month in advance. The flight, obviously, the hotel in Delhi, and really that was it. Everything else was going to kind of be after you get there, figure it out. So money exchanges, I had read up on it, but really didn't know how that was going to happen, where it was going to take place, how much I was going to need to take out. The exchange rate, I knew the exchange rate, but I didn't know how far my money was going to go. And I will say overall, the entire trip, this was close to 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks that I was there from the 13th to the 31st, maybe just over a couple of $1,000. And that
Oh,
was, I know, because
that's
you're
like really good. That's including your airfare to get there?
airfare to get there, my accommodations to stay, the food. One of the comparisons that I love to make is when I was coming back, I had a layover in Amsterdam, and I went to a little cafe in the airport there in Amsterdam, and it was, I think, around 25 euro, which was what I paid my Airbnb to give me breakfast for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. I think I was thinking that just the airfare and stays alone would be several thousand. Talk to me about the vaccines.
And that was part of the prep before I went out. I don't remember what all I had to get. I remember hepatitis A was one. I had to re-up my tetanus shot. And there were several others that were suggested. Once I contacted the health department, they's like, you got 3 or 4 that you may want to get, but any health department can give you guidance. There was a couple of fevers that there was an outbreak of them in southern India at the time, but they said because I was going to be in northern India that I didn't have to worry about it, which I felt that seemed so odd to me. It was like, okay, they're aware, the World Health Organization, the health departments, they're aware that these things are actually going on in the country and are able to advise you on. There's like, we can give you this vaccine, but it's not necessary. Was it dengue fever? I think it was
I was
dengue.
gonna guess, was it dengue? Because that's the only one that I can think of.
Yeah, and they're like, no, 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 don't worry about it, you'll be fine.
I've never been to that side of the world. Talk to us about getting there. I'm sure that was a day and a half of fun.
So I left on January 13th on a red eye and flew to Heathrow. Now, of course, you're taking a red eye. I crossed into the 14th on the way over, and it was the morning of the 14th, and I was in Heathrow for the majority of the day before I caught another flight over to Delhi. and I actually got into Delhi on the 15th. So there was another full day in between. So I got to know the Heathrow Airport very well during that layover.
So it was just two legs to get all the way over there.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
it.
well,
They were long legs.
well, sure. Okay, so you land in India. Are you on a jet bridge into the airport? Are you all getting off stairs? Like, what is it like? Because sometimes when I go to Central America, I'm like, oh wow, this is very different than landing at the ATL airport.
Delhi, definitely a jet bridge. One of the things I was warned about, you're traveling where maybe it's not your native language, be concerned with theft. Everyone's concerned with, oh, you're going to get robbed and all of these things. I only really had one incident, and it was at the airport, and it was just because there are hustlers everywhere.
Hmm.
And I paid $50 for a transport that should have cost me five. But honestly,
Oh,
in the US, it would have cost me $50. So it really, I didn't even know. And it was just because the guy, he came out, it's like, oh yeah, I'm with the airport. He grabbed my bags and he's taking me. And he had nothing to do with the airport. And he, he had a deal going on with the cabbies out there. I got there, I was fine. I had one friend say, oh, my father, he went, and people, the cabbies will take you off somewhere and they'll pull you out and they'll mug you and then they'll leave you. And I'm like, all right, it's a little concerning, but I'm 6'2", 200 pounds. If they really want my money that bad, they're gonna have to earn it. So it's we'll see. I wasn't that concerned about it. But that was really the only incident I had that I ran into where afterwards I'm like, after I started booking Ubers later that day, and I was like, $5 here, $2 here. I'm like, oh man, most everyone spoke English,
hmm.
so there were no issues there. I'm the little bit of Hindi I knew going in, I didn't even need. I think if you take anything away from this, it should be that the people were so incredibly wonderful and genuine and loving that I get chills talking about it because it was overwhelming just how wonderful the people there were. And Delhi was great. Dharamshala blew out of the water anything I could think about a culture of kindness and peace and love that I couldn't have even imagined. It was fantastic.
Hey, if the worst thing that happened is that somebody charged you 45 bucks US more for something, and yet you were still at the time willing to pay it, that sounds like a
Oh
really
yeah.
good.
Oh my.
So you're in Delhi, you spend the first few days there, right? What do you do in Delhi?
The first day when my cab pulled up, he pulled up to the location. There's a bit of culture shock because he pulled up to the location and he said, "Here you are." And my first thought is like, "Am I about to get mugged?" Because the place he was dropping me did not look like the pictures, and we've all run into that. We're in real estate. We know what photographers can do. But after a day there, going out, walking around, it's just an older neighborhood. It's buildings 80, 90 years old, and it's an apartment building. Mine was a little Airbnb that I was renting. So the first night, the first day I was there, I really didn't leave the complex. 4 or 5 skyscraper apartments with just many families. And it was a gated community. So I felt very safe after the first night. I ate at a little restaurant that was in one of the buildings the first night. It wasn't until the next night that I actually got out and was able to venture around Delhi. The smell, a lot of people have warned me about how dirty Delhi would be. And dirty doesn't necessarily translate to bad. It just means there was a lot of dirt, and because they're transport and there's a lot of things going on there. So there was a smell of dirt. That's the smell of rain,
Mm.
wet dirt, and it was that smell. And there was something else that I could not figure out what it was. It was sweet, and it was in the air, and it was constant. And it's one of those things how when you go into someone's home and they're completely immune to whatever, maybe they have a pet or there's an air freshener that they've gotten completely used to. I asked several people about it and they were like, oh, you just smell the dirt. And I was like, no, there's something sweet. What I found out later is tobacco. Tobacco use is so heavy there. And I realized this after seeing, so many packets on the ground, the empty cigarette or tobacco packets on the ground that it's like, oh, that's it. It was a very sweet tobacco smell in the air. Transport was extraordinarily easy. Uber, they were quick.
I would never have guessed that you would have Ubered this much. And I know that Delhi is a gigantic international
Yeah,
city. And
yes.
yet I would have totally thought more rickshaws and cabs and things like that, and not so much the modern world.
There was a scene, and I'll have to send you a still from the video I took, where my Uber driver's name was Guarev, and I know his name because we spent an entire day together. He he didn't take any more fares. He learned I was an American, and we got to talking. He's like, "Do you mind if I spend the day with you?" I'm like, "Do I mind? Do I mind?" I was like, "Please." And we were driving, and it was right before we got to a shopping district called Chandi Chowk, and as we're passing, we come to an intersection, and there is an ox driving a cart. There's a bus passing. There's a rickshaw. There's a tuk-tuk, and there's 3 or 4 cars all converging. There are 7 modes of transportation in this one little area, and it was just the most surreal thing I've ever seen. So I did take plenty of tuk-tuks while I was there as well. After I got very comfortable with seeing these little three-wheelers, riding all over the place. But they're just little two-seaters, and there's a guy up front, and it's a little tri-wheel vehicle, and it has a cover, and they're zipping all over the place. Traffic, Wild West, absolute Wild West. There's vehicles and cars, and they're interweaving, and yeah, it was wild.
Did you see any accidents? Because I've seen reels, overlooking lanes and lanes of just insanity.
No, I think I was very fortunate. If I saw anything, the horns were constant, and they were as much of an alert as they were, hey, get out of the way kind of thing. But everyone was always on the horns and very aware. And this is with pedestrians all over the place. I mean, people just zipping by.
How many days were you in Delhi, and what were the favorite things that you saw?
Delhi, I was only there 3 days. And honestly, I felt like that was enough,
Mm.
just based on what I experienced in Dharamshala. Chandi Chowk was the shopping district. We went into that shopping district. Red Fort, we didn't get to go in, but we got to see it. So there was always lots of sights. Humayun's tomb, which is kind of a mini Taj Mahal. The gate to go in, because there was a little museum off to the side, and then when you finish, you get to go out to the tomb. When you walk out, there's a gate that, is kind of shaped like this. And as you're walking through it, it just kind of opens up to this expanse that's just kind of breathtaking. And the enormity of it, it just kind of takes your breath. It's just, you're awestruck. I don't know, some of the things were so intangible, I feel like, because even like at the tomb, I would see people, clustered together, or they're wanting to take pictures. So I would go offer to take pictures, and those were kind of my interactions with people. So those small interactions with people at these different locations were kind of my favorite part of the experience. I went to Lodi Gardens. Lodi Gardens was absolutely beautiful. I could have stayed there an entire day. And it was where I first ran into monkeys. I didn't know that monkeys were out in the wild there. And so coming upon them was a bit of a surprise. And you see something scurry by, and it's like, oh, that's a monkey. They were just as available as you would see squirrels in Georgia. So they were just everywhere. Pinning down an actual what I did as a favorite, that's tough. I think that my experience with the people was really great. Even in the market, where you've heard of traders in these types of markets, and the negotiating and the back and forth. Guarev actually took me away from one trader. He's like, no, no, no. He was trying to get me to charge you more, and he was going to cut me in. And I was
Oh,
like,
okay, a
yeah,
hustler.
yeah, I was like, thank you, Gaurav. I appreciate that.
My
And
friend Marky went to Thailand twice. So she was on one of the podcast episodes, and she told me that in Thailand, they actually want you to haggle with them. So she thought that it was going to be offensive to kind of negotiate the prices. And apparently that is just part of the culture there. So is that the
yep.
same in India?
Oh, 100%. They are expecting you to haggle a bit.
What
No.
did you eat in Delhi? Because I do not eat a lot of ethnic food. I am a Southern comfort, all the bacon fat, and salt kind of person. So what did you eat? Was it specific to Delhi? Was it more India in general? What did you remember from that?
The first night I was there, we have a restaurant here called Seven Spices, which is probably as close to authentic Indian food as you can get. And you can do mild, spicy, and then they have Indian. So yeah, that's the way they rank it. And mild is still a little spicy, and Indian, unless you're from India, you don't touch it. And I found that their baseline for food in Delhi was at the medium scale. So everything was already a little bit spicy, which I found was great. It wasn't, I don't like things too terribly spicy. The curry chicken, I think I had some chicken masala was my first night there. I actually went to, I think it was Chatter House, and it was in one of the little shopping districts. And it was actually American themed, almost like Irish or vice versa.
Hmm.
Irish themed American food. But I had Indian dish there. I think I had a chicken masala there as well. And they brought out enough naan to feed. I don't know if they thought I had a party coming,
Mhm.
but it was so much food. And that was the case everywhere I went, that I'd go spend $5 on a meal and would feast like I had paid $100 here in the US. It was incredible the amount of food that they would bring you.
Cows are sacred in India, correct? So I'm assuming you did not see beef on the menu.
I don't remember, it wasn't one of those things I was really looking for. I had a lot of chicken, but yeah, I don't remember seeing beef on any of the menus. And you're absolutely right. I told you there was a vehicle, if you want to call it, being driven by an ox, but there were literally cows everywhere, down every street. You see them all day long. It's their space.
So when I go out west, sometimes I'll see that there's a sign, open range, and you know that there's going to be potentially a cow around the corner on the street or right off the street. Is that similar?
When I got to Dharamshala, and that's when I was actually brave enough to get a vehicle, and I got a little motorcycle, I would stop and pet the cows because they were on the street and they're friendly and they're used to people. I don't know, there was kind of like a symbiosis. So that,
Mhm.
just everything living together, and it just, I don't know, it just felt really good.
It sounds very peaceful.
It was incredibly.
Is there anything else about Delhi that you wanted to share with people? What should they do or look out for or eat if they were to go?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you want this part.
I do.
Have you heard of Delhi Belly?
I know where this is going. Tell them.
Oh my gosh. So my last night in Delhi, I didn't tell you, when I went out with Guarev and we're doing our street vending and we're walking around, he's like, do you want some aloo tikka? And I was like, what is aloo tikka? And he's like, it's just like a fried potato puff pastry. And they're cooking them on the street. I'm like, sure, yeah, give me one of those. And I grabbed one and I take a bite and it's great. And he's like, oh, how about some mint water? I was like, okay, what's mint water? He's like, it's just water flavored with mint. Fantastic. So they have this cauldron and they pour it up and he gives it to me. And you're always warned, drink bottled water. I was having the time of my life. Tossed it back, didn't give it a second thought until the night before I was supposed to get on a plane to Dharamshala. I was going to take a train. Booking the trains seemed a little difficult. So if there's one piece, if you're wanting to take a train, it's about an 8 to 10 hour train ride.
Oh.
You want to book that in advance. I guess the trains fill up quickly. I wasn't able to do that. So I was like, well, I'll just book a flight.
I've heard that most countries, the domestic travel within it is a whole lot more cost effective than getting from the United States into the country.
Oh, 100%. I think a 10-hour train ride was going to be about $50. Very, very cost effective, which is why I wanted to do it. But the flight was only, I booked it the day of. The flight was only $100. So yeah. I started getting sick on the night of the 17th, and I was flying into Dharamshala on the 18th. I thought it was food poisoning. I was like, no, it's not Delhi belly. I don't have dysentery. I had dysentery. It was,
Which is what people died of on the
yeah,
Oregon Trail. Oh my
exactly.
gosh. So you got 2025 real
Mhm.
life dysentery.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as fun as it sounds. I didn't get treatment for because I was thinking, how am I going to get triaged at a hospital? There was all these thoughts, and I'm Googling and I'm researching, what can I take? And finally, I speak to someone in town. This is on like the sixth day. the sixth day of this, I'm down 25 pounds. I
You
have,
lost 25 pounds in 6 days?
yeah, it's an effective but terrible diet. And I'll send you a picture. You can see, I mean, I'm clothed, but I'm emaciated. I'm skin and bones. I met someone in town and they're like, oh, well, just go to the chemist. I was like, the chemist? Like, well, yeah, pharmacist, where you're from. It's like, okay. So I stop by the pharmacy. I tell him what's going on. He's like, oh, here you go. Hands me an antibiotic. He's like, take this for the next 4 days. It'll cost you $2. And yeah, I know. So I took it, and within hours, I was feeling better. So it was just
Wow.
I had the bacteria, and I got it out. But that was 6 days. Gosh, I think I only had like 5 or 6 days left.
Okay,
Uh,
so word to the wise, if you go and you are not an Indian native, do not drink the water in Delhi. You are bottled water only.
Bottled water only. And even my Indian friends that I spoke to, they said, look, it takes us several weeks when we go back home, if we haven't been there for a while, to get readjusted to
Interesting.
the flora in the water.
Well, that does it for part one of Brad's trip to India. This part focused on Delhi, and yet we have part two coming up about his trip to Dharamshala and to see the Dalai Lama's temple. So stay tuned in the future for Brad's part two episode. Find me on Instagram at the.great.escape.podcast and send me a message. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can follow along and dream big for your journeys on The Great Escape. See you next time, adventurers.